Franklin Gaines sat in the quiet stillness of his office, the warm light of dusk bleeding through the blinds as his eyes scanned the quarterly reports laid out like a battlefield across his mahogany desk. Most of the numbers were solid. 7 out of 9 stores had hit or exceeded expectations, but 2, Store 4, and, especially, Store 7, were consistently dragging the whole chain down like an anchor in a storm. Store 7 was bleeding trust. Online reviews were scathing. Customers complained of cold receptions, long waits, and aggressive upselling. Words like condescending and dishonest were used too often to ignore. Franklin clenched his jaw. 5 years ago, he had inherited this business from his father, a man revered by employees and customers alike for his integrity and personal touch. Franklin had tried to modernize without losing that soul, but somewhere along the way, the chain had started to feel more like a machine, and not the well-oiled kind. Until now, he'd relied on district managers to maintain order, but excuses had started to pile up like unpaid bills. "It's the local economy," they'd say, "just a phase." Franklin was done waiting. He was done trusting reports from people who might not even be walking into the stores. He needed to see it for himself. The next morning, Franklin transformed. With the help of an old college friend who now worked in theater makeup and wardrobe, he crafted a disguise, a graying wig, a heavier build padded under a loose button-down, khaki cargo pants, thick-rimmed glasses, and a soft southern drawl that seemed to add 10 years to his voice. He gave himself a name, Harold, and a purpose, a grandfather shopping for a laptop for his 16-year-old grandson. No one at Store 7 had met him. To them, he was just a name at the bottom of corporate memos. Franklin parked far from the storefront and slowly made his way across the lot, forcing a slight stoop into his walk. The store itself was sleek, modern, clean to a fault, but sterile, cold. No one greeted him. 3 employees stood in a cluster near the counter, laughing at something on one of their phones. One of them, a tall man with slicked back hair and a name tag that read Grant, Sales, briefly glanced Franklin's way, then turned back to his screen. Franklin lingered by the laptop section, quietly inspecting the models. Minutes passed. No help came. Finally, he turned and called out, "Excuse me, young man, could I get a little help over here?" Grant let out an audible sigh, as if interrupted in the middle of something far more important than doing his job. He sauntered over with his hands buried in his pockets and asked flatly, "Yeah, what are you looking for?" Franklin blinked, taken aback by the lack of professionalism. "Well, I need something for my grandson. He just turned 16. He likes gaming and, he's starting some school projects too." Grant gestured vaguely toward the gaming laptops. "These are top of the line. That one right there's our best deal. Only $1,400.00. Franklin looked down at the tag. It read, "Regular price, $999.00. Today only $849.00. His brow furrowed. "It says $849.00. Without flinching, Grant replied, "Nah, that's last week's deal. Signage just ain't been updated yet. It's $1,400.00 now." Franklin's stomach churned. He fought the rising tide of disbelief and forced a calm tone. "Even though it says today only?" Grant shrugged, eyes already drifting back toward the counter. "Yeah, happens all the time. Signage team messes up. It's $1,400.00. Trust me." Franklin felt a slow burn building in his chest. This wasn't just incompetence. It was deception. But he couldn't blow his cover. Not yet. "All right," he said, nodding, masking the heat behind his eyes. "I'll think on it." As he turned, still processing the surreal interaction, a soft voice approached him from behind. "Excuse me, sir?" He turned to see a young woman with a neat ponytail and a badge that read Jessa Whitmore, Sales Support. Her tone was gentle and her eyes kind. "I just wanted to let you know that the price on that laptop is actually correct," she said. "It's part of a weekend promo that ends tonight. If you're interested, I can ring it up for you before the deal expires." Franklin studied her for a moment. "Really? That young man over there told me it was $1,400.00." Jessa frowned slightly, confusion flashing across her face. "That's not right. It's definitely $849.00 today. I can double-check in the system if you'd like." He offered a faint smile. "Please." Jessa walked briskly to a nearby terminal, typed swiftly, and returned moments later. "Confirmed. The price is valid. Would you like me to hold it while you look around?" Franklin nodded, his voice low. "Yes, thank you." As she walked away, he exhaled deeply. Underneath his disguise, Franklin wasn't just a CEO anymore. He was a man who had just seen the first glimmer of the truth he'd suspected for weeks. And with that truth came the weight of a decision he knew he'd have to make. The storm hadn't passed. It had just started. Franklin watched as Jessa disappeared into the break room, her calm energy still lingering like a quiet echo in the space she'd left behind. Then his eyes drifted back to Grant, now loud and animated in the phone accessories aisle, laughing too hard, gesturing theatrically to a young couple as he rattled off buzzwords that sounded impressive, but meant little. Franklin's heart beat faster. He had expected to observe, perhaps catch a few subtle red flags, not to be confronted by dishonesty this blatant, this quickly. He stayed for over an hour, long enough to see the contrast grow starker with every passing minute. Jessa was a constant source of patience and empathy. He watched her guide an elderly woman through the confusing maze of phone backups, step by step, without an ounce of condescension. She knelt beside her, smiled gently, reassured her when the device froze, and stayed until it was done. Meanwhile, Grant and another employee named Kyle drifted in and out of the back room like ghosts avoiding daylight. Every time Franklin glanced over, they were either gone or standing idle, scrolling on their phones, laughter masking the apathy underneath. At one point, a man asked Kyle where the restroom was. Kyle didn't even lift his head, just vaguely pointed and said, "Somewhere that way," then turned away. The customer stood for a moment, confused and forgotten. When Franklin finally exited the store, he exhaled like a man emerging from underwater. He climbed into his car, reached up, and removed the wig. The face that stared back at him from the rearview mirror was not one of a CEO. It was a man wrestling with disappointment, weariness, and a fierce stirring of accountability. "How the hell did it come to this?" he muttered, rubbing the bridge of his nose. His thoughts drifted to his father, the man who once walked every store floor like it was sacred ground, who knew every employee by name, who remembered birthdays and brought donuts on slow Mondays. Somewhere along the way, Franklin had let numbers replace people, KPIs over conversations, reports over relationships. He had stayed too far above the ground floor, and now the foundation was cracking. He grabbed his phone and dialed his assistant. "Get the district manager in my office tomorrow morning, and I want all security footage from Store 7, 2 weeks, everything." The next morning, Franklin sat at the head of the long walnut conference table, posture rigid, arms crossed like a stone wall. Across from him stood Shaw Darby, district manager for the region. Shaw had always been a polished man, articulate, well-dressed, calm under pressure. But today, something in his stance gave away the tension beneath the surface. He was bracing for something he didn't fully understand yet. "Explain Store 7, Franklin said, voice like cold steel. Shaw cleared his throat. "It's been a difficult location. High turnover, unpredictable traffic. We've struggled to maintain strong leadership on the floor." Franklin raised a hand, silencing him. I was there. Yesterday. In person. In disguise. Shaw's eyes widened a fraction. His mouth opened, but no sound followed. I bought a laptop, got lied to about the price, watched a junior employee fix it without hesitation. I saw 2 others disappear into the back for half an hour. Customers left without help. No one greeted me. I had to ask for assistance. Shaw's face went pale. I wasn't aware of any of that. That's the problem. Franklin's assistant entered and set a laptop in front of him. He tapped a key and security footage rolled. Grant talking to a customer, then vanishing into the back. 10 minutes. 15. He reappeared and leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. Kyle joined him. They laughed. In the background, another customer wandered helplessly near the headphones display. Where's the floor manager? Franklin asked. Shaw cleared his throat again. Currently, it's Grant. Temporarily. The previous manager left 3 weeks ago. We haven't filled the position yet. Franklin locked eyes with him. So the man lying to customers is the one running the store. I didn't know he was doing that, Shaw said, now visibly sweating. I've been watching the numbers, KPIs, conversion rates. I don't give a damn about conversion rates if the experience is broken, Franklin snapped. You don't need a spreadsheet to see customers being driven out the door. Shaw swallowed hard. Do you want me to begin disciplinary actions? No, Franklin said, standing. I don't want you handling it at all. Effective immediately, I'm taking direct control of Store 7. Until further notice, you stay on your current assignments. That store is off your plate. Shaw stood stiffly, nodded. Understood. Franklin paused at the door. Sean, if you knew and ignored it, that's one kind of failure. If you didn't know because you weren't looking, that's another. Neither is acceptable. Don't let it happen again. After Shaw left, Franklin turned back to the screen. He rewound the footage until Jessa reappeared, sitting beside the elderly woman again. The timestamp showed she spent 13 minutes with her, calm, unhurried, steady. She hadn't cut corners. She hadn't treated the woman like a burden. Franklin jotted down her name again, Jessa Whitmore. By early afternoon, he was back in the parking lot of Store 7. No wig, no glasses, just himself, in jeans and a casual button-down. A man returning, not just to a building, but to a purpose he had almost forgotten. He stepped inside. The front counter looked the same. The same employees stood in the same spots. Grant looked up, recognizing him from the day before, but not for who he truly was. Franklin walked directly to the customer service desk. Is Jessa in? He asked calmly. The woman behind the counter nodded. She's on break, should be back in 10. Franklin smiled faintly and stepped aside, hands in his pockets, waiting not just for Jessa, but for the moment things would begin to change. Franklin glanced toward the sales floor once more. Grant leaned against a wall, scrolling through his phone like the world owed him peace for showing up. Kyle stood on the far end, supposedly helping a customer with headphones, though his posture gave him away. Disinterested, disengaged, barely present. It was a store on autopilot, where effort was rationed and pride had left the building long ago. Without a word, Franklin turned and made his way to the back office. A middle-aged woman was seated at the desk, typing methodically into the POS system. When she looked up, her eyes met his, and he spoke quietly but firmly. I'm Franklin Gaines, he said. The owner. Her hands froze mid-keystroke. Eyes wide, she immediately stood up. Mr. Gaines, I had no idea you were visiting today. I wasn't told. I came yesterday, as a customer, he said. I need to speak with Grant and Kyle now. She nodded quickly and reached for the intercom. Moments later, both men entered the back office, confusion etched across their faces. They still didn't know the storm they'd walked into. Franklin didn't sit. He didn't soften. "Do either of you recognize me?" Grant squinted. "You're the guy from yesterday? The one buying a laptop?" Franklin nodded slowly. "I am. And I'm also the man whose name is on the bottom of your paycheck." Kyle's expression shifted first, eyes widening, jaw tightening. Grant stiffened, arms tensing at his sides. "I'm going to make this very simple," Franklin began, voice cold with purpose. "Grant, you lied to my face about the price, about the promotion. You refused to check the system. You pushed a false number to UPS sell me." "Why?" Grant opened his mouth, stammered. I thought the price had changed. I wasn't sure." "You told me you were sure. You said there was no need to check." "Well, I've been told to push the higher margin items. I figured." "You figured wrong," Franklin snapped. Then he turned to Kyle. "And you? I watched you vanish into the back room more than once. I watched you ignore customers. I watched you point a man to the restroom like he was an inconvenience. Care to explain?" Kyle shrugged. "It gets slow sometimes. There's not always something to do." "There's always something to do," Franklin said, voice rising. "Restocking, cleaning, learning the inventory, helping teammates, helping people. If you're bored, it's because you're choosing to be." Neither man replied. There was nothing to say. "You're both done here," Franklin declared. "Effective immediately." Grant's face flushed. "Wait, hold on, this isn't a negotiation. You gambled I wouldn't notice. You were wrong." He turned to the office manager. "Escort them out, cancel their credentials. I'll handle the paperwork personally." As they were led out, Franklin stepped onto the sales floor. The store fell still. Conversations died. The silence was heavy. Eyes followed him. People understood something had shifted. Because it had. 10 minutes later, Jessa walked in from her break, a sandwich bag in one hand, earbuds in. She paused mid-step when she saw Franklin. He smiled softly. "You probably don't recognize me without the wig." She blinked, then stared. "You were the customer yesterday?" "I was," he said. "Got a second?" She followed him quietly to a corner near the tablet case displays. "I saw how you handled the pricing error. You didn't hesitate, you didn't play politics, you just did the right thing. I saw how you treated that older woman. Took your time, never rushed her. You were the only one who seemed to actually care." Jessa lowered her voice. "I just try to treat people how I'd want someone to treat my grandparents." "Where'd you learn that?" Franklin asked. "My mom," Jessa said, a nostalgic glint in her eye. "She ran a small hardware store, said how you treat people matters more than what you sell them." Franklin nodded. "You want responsibility?" Her eyes widened. "Excuse me?" "I just fired the acting floor manager," he said. "This store needs someone who gets it, who leads with heart and listens. That someone is you." Jessa hesitated. "I've never managed people before." "You don't need to know everything," Franklin said, a rare softness in his voice. "You just need to care. Skills can be taught, values come standard." She looked down at her feet, then back up, steady. "I'd be honored." "Good," he said. "Let's talk in the office." As they walked back together, Franklin caught sight of two younger employees quietly straightening the shelves. No phones, no slouching. Word had traveled fast. It would take more than a firing and a promotion to rebuild trust, to revive pride. But this was how it started. Not with slogans, not with all-staff emails. With action, with one clear human decision at a time. The next morning, Franklin arrived an hour before opening. He stood by the delivery entrance, holding 2 coffees in hand. The air was crisp, tinged with the smell of summer pavement and morning resolve. The light was soft but steady, just like his commitment. Jessa arrived on foot, hoodie up against the breeze, backpack slung over her shoulder. She paused when she spotted him. "I figured you didn't have much time to stop for breakfast," he said, holding out one of the coffees. "Hope oat milk's okay. It's what they gave me." She took it gently. "Thanks. That's really thoughtful." "Walk with me," he said. They stepped inside through the back hallway, dimly lit and cluttered with unopened shipments and weary-looking monitors. The walls needed paint. The light above flickered like a warning. But Franklin didn't flinch. "I'm not expecting miracles," he said. "I know this place wasn't set up to win. You're understaffed. People are burned out. Until yesterday, no one was really watching. That changes now." Jessa nodded quietly, sipping her coffee. "I want you to tell me what you need," he continued. "Not just today. Over the next 3 months. What's going to help us turn this around?" She set her coffee down on a crate, thinking. "Start with the schedule," she said. "Fewer overlapping shifts. People burn out covering for no-shows, then still have to smile like they're working at Disneyland." Franklin smiled faintly, listening not just with his ears, but with intention. This was the new beginning. One built not on reports or performance charts, but on real voices, real effort, and real leadership. Franklin gave a slow nod, his gaze steady. "We'll fix the schedule." Then he paused. "What else?" "Training," Jessa said immediately. "Not the half-baked online stuff. Real training. Half the new hires can't even explain what refresh rate means. They just memorize which model costs more and push it, like that's the whole job." Franklin reached into his jacket, pulling out a small, leather-bound notepad. His pen scratched against the page with practiced speed. Jessa wasn't venting. She was offering solutions. That mattered. "And we need someone who actually knows how to talk to people," she added, her tone steady but firm. "Right now, this place feels transactional, like everyone's just scanning for commission instead of listening. It's cold. People feel that." He stopped writing and looked up. "You ever run a meeting?" Jessa chuckled nervously. "No, but I've sat through enough bad ones. I have some thoughts." Franklin flipped the notepad shut. "Good. You're leading the morning huddle. Be honest. Don't sugarcoat it. The right people will step up. The rest, they won't last long anyway." He moved toward the front of the store. The morning crew was trickling in. A young man with oversized glasses and nervous energy quietly clocked in. A petite woman with a long braid, Anna, her badge red, leaned against the counter, eyes glued to the inventory tablet. The room was muted, sluggish, like a machine booting up after a long freeze. At 8:55, Franklin signaled everyone near the breakroom door. Jessa cleared her throat. No one really looked at her. A tall guy with a shaved head. Rico still had earbuds in, music thumping faintly as he leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Jessa didn't raise her voice. She didn't play boss. She just spoke. "Listen, I know this week's been strange. There's been change, some surprises, but if we want this store to survive, we have to change how we treat people, customers, and each other." Still, no one moved. Rico didn't even glance her way. She turned toward him. "I'm going to need your attention," she said plainly. Rico didn't flinch. Franklin stepped forward, calm but resolute. "Name?" The man looked up. "Rico." "You're done here, Rico." Rico's head tilted. "What?" "You're not listening. You're not participating. You're not here to be part of a team. Get your things." A beat of silence. Then Rico let out a bitter laugh and walked off without another word. The air changed, tightened like the first crack of thunder before a summer storm. Jessa looked around. If you're still here, it's because you want to be. From now on, nobody gets ignored. Nobody gets lied to. If you don't know something, ask. If someone needs help, offer it. That's the rule. That's it. The silence that followed wasn't cold. It was thoughtful. Franklin stepped in. Doors open in 3. Let's get to it. The morning started slow. A few regulars trickled in, battery replacements, cracked screens, charger cables. Jessa stayed visible, checking in with each employee, not hovering but engaging. She offered feedback where needed and encouragement where it mattered. Franklin sat at the tech bar, laptop open, pretending to work. But really he was observing, quietly, intently. Around noon, a woman walked in with her teenage son. The boy's arm was in a cast and he clutched a cracked tablet in his good hand. They hesitated near the entrance, unsure where to go. Jessa spotted them instantly. "Hi there," she said warmly, walking over. "Here for a repair?" The boy nodded. The mother looked visibly relieved, as if someone had finally noticed the weight she'd been carrying. "Let's get you checked in," Jessa said, guiding them to the service desk. Franklin watched her work, precise but kind. She asked the boy what happened, listened fully, didn't interrupt. She gave the mother a realistic timeline, honest about the backlog but offering same-day diagnostics as a hopeful compromise. Nearby, the guy with glasses, Jason, Franklin had learned, was helping a couple compare 2 laptops. He didn't push the pricier model. He asked what they needed, what they used at home, what their budget looked like. He spoke slowly, thoughtfully, breaking down specs like a teacher instead of a salesperson. By mid-afternoon, Franklin noticed the atmosphere had shifted. Without Grant and Rico in the mix, the air felt less tense. Less defensive, not empty, but peaceful, like a space finally allowed to breathe. He stepped outside, pacing near the loading dock, the phone pressed to his ear. His assistant picked up on the second ring. "Find me a corporate trainer," Franklin said. "Someone who's worked in high-volume electronics retail. Someone who knows how to coach from the floor, not a slideshow. I want them embedded in Store 7, 6 weeks, starting Monday." "Ah, understood. And open a requisition for 2 full-time hires. We need backup. But Jessa screens every candidate. Understood?" "Got it." He ended the call and turned back toward the building. As he re-entered, he spotted a man at the front counter. Late 60s, clearly frustrated, gesturing sharply at his phone. Nah, one of the quieter employees was speaking in calm tones, but the customer was agitated, tapping furiously on the screen. "I bought this thing 3 days ago," the man snapped. "Now it won't even connect to Wi-Fi. I don't want a repair, I want a refund." Franklin moved closer, quietly positioning himself within earshot. A moment of tension was unfolding, but what happened next would determine whether this store was truly turning a corner, or just hoping it had. Na glanced at Jessa, who was deep in conversation with another customer. She turned back to the agitated man in front of her. "I understand why you're upset. Let me check the return policy and see." "I don't need you to check anything," the man snapped, voice sharp with entitlement. "I need you to do your job." Before she could respond, Franklin stepped forward, calm but commanding. "Sir," he said evenly, "I'm the owner. If there's an issue, I'll handle it directly." The man turned toward him. "Good. Then tell her to stop wasting my time." Franklin didn't blink. "You can speak to me, not at her. She's doing her job." The man hesitated, eyes flickering between them. "I just want my money back," he muttered. "I'm sure we can work something out," Franklin replied, his voice steady. "But you'll do it respectfully. Or not at all." There was a beat of silence. Then the man huffed and handed over the phone. Na took it calmly, unfazed. Franklin leaned in, his voice quiet now. "You okay?" Na nodded. I've dealt with worse. You shouldn't have to. He stepped back and let her finish the return. No escalation, no shouting, just boundaries and backbone. By closing time, the store hadn't hit record numbers, but it didn't need to. What mattered was that no one left angry, no one left ignored. The air had changed, the foundation had shifted. Jessa gathered the team near the counter after the last customer walked out. "Thanks for today," she said. "It wasn't perfect, but it was better." Jason raised his hand. "Can I suggest something?" She nodded. "Let's rotate who greets people when it's slow. That way everyone shares the front, and no one gets stuck there alone." Jesse smiled. "Good idea. We'll start tomorrow." Franklin watched from a distance, then stepped beside her as the group broke apart. "You're doing more than managing," he said. "You're leading." She folded her arms loosely, almost shy. "I'm just trying to keep it from falling apart." "That's exactly how leadership begins," he replied. "Don't underestimate that." She glanced around the store, still unsure. "It feels like if one person calls out, it could all collapse." "It might," Franklin said, "but that's why we're rebuilding, not patching." She nodded, quietly taking that in. As he turned to leave, he paused. "I'll be back tomorrow, but you don't need me here anymore. You've already started." He walked out into the dusk with no clipboard, no disguise, just clarity. The next week was steady, not flashy. Store 7 didn't transform overnight, but for the first time in a long time, it was functioning, healthily, purposefully. Franklin showed up each morning not to dictate, but to support. He wore jeans and polos, not suits. He set up a small desk by the service kiosk, close enough to listen, far enough to not interfere. He watched the rhythm form. People started to trust the tempo. On Friday, the new corporate trainer arrived. Denise Calder, early 40s, no nonsense, renowned across the West Coast for reviving struggling stores. No slides, no fluff. "You want real," she said, looking Franklin in the eye. "You'll get real. But some folks won't like it." "That's the point," he said simply. Her first day was silent observation. She followed employees like a shadow, listening, watching. She didn't correct, she didn't critique, she absorbed. She saw Jessa redirect a misdelivered pallet while helping 2 customers. She noted which departments had poor communication. She tracked who leaned in and who leaned out the second the pace picked up. That night, before closing, she gave Franklin her read. "Jason's green, but teachable. Na has real instincts with customers but needs product depth. The rest, drifting, hiding. You've got 4, maybe 5 people actually carrying this place, and you're still 1 key hire short." "What kind of hire?" Franklin asked. "Someone who's been on the floor, who's not afraid to speak up. Jessa's doing too much. If she burns out, this whole thing backslides." Franklin looked toward the break room where Jessa was helping Jason sort out damaged stock. "I'll find them." The next morning, he pulled Jessa aside. "You're not being replaced," he said. "You're being supported. I need someone at your level to scale this, to build, not just react." "I thought that was what you were doing," she said softly. "I'm temporary, you're permanent." She nodded. "As long as I help choose." "You're the first interview," he said. She blinked. "Wait, you want me to apply for my own support? I want to know how you'd build the role, what you'd expect. You're not being handed a manager, you're helping create one." They spent an hour outlining it all. Delegation systems, conflict protocols, a mentorship rotation, anonymous feedback loops. By Tuesday, interviews began. 5 candidates. One had textbook credentials but spoke over Jessa constantly. Other cracked a joke about angry customers. Wrong room, wrong era. Then came Lion Marcato. Mid-30s, Former manager of a struggling cell phone shop, she'd turned into the district's top performer. No ego, just answers. Franklin asked, "What's your first move when a team doesn't trust leadership?" "Don't talk," she said. "Show up early. Clean the break room. Cover lunch. Don't demand respect. Earn it. Do the work." Jessa nodded before Franklin even could. Hired on the spot. Lion started that Monday. No new slogans, no flashy changes, just structure. She rotated assignments, took notes, mediated when needed. When a customer blew up over a missed order, she didn't grovel. She apologized for the experience, fixed it, and followed up with a handwritten note 2 days later. 3 weeks in, Franklin made his final surprise visit. Same parking lot, different store. A college student hovered near the accessory wall, overwhelmed. Jason walked up, not with a pitch, but a question. "What do you already have? And what's been driving you nuts?" The kid laughed, relaxed. The service desk had a queue system now. Na ran it like clockwork, steady, confident. In the break room, Jessa sat with 2 part-timers going over a chart sheet hand-drawn. It wasn't official, but they leaned in like it was gospel. At the end of day huddle, Denise stood with clipboard in hand, unused. "They're ready," she told Franklin. He stepped forward. "I came here because something was broken," he said, "and you fixed it, not with pretending. With presence, with honesty." He turned to Jessa. "You took ownership before you had the title, and that mattered." He handed her an envelope. Inside, promotion to assistant store lead, salary backdated to her first day in that role. Jessa blinked. "I'm not going to make a speech, but thank you. You no more did that, and I think you." He turned to Lion. "You anchored the change. You helped this team become a unit. This store isn't just working, it's healthy." Lion nodded. "Still a long way to go." "True," Franklin smiled. "But it's your road now, not mine." As the team dispersed, he lingered at the counter. The same one that once felt like a wall. Now, it felt like a welcome mat. Jessa joined him. "Did you ever think it would turn around this fast?" she asked. "Not fast," he replied. "Just steady. The right people make the difference." "Excellent." She looked toward the floor. Jason was walking a customer through printer setup. "Feels different." "It is." He grabbed his coat. "I'll be back. Not a surprise, just a visit." "Bring coffee," she said. "Oat milk." He grinned. "Deal." Franklin stepped out into the cool night air. No disguise, no pretense, just a business owner who had finally found his business again. Behind him, Store 7 stayed open 10 extra minutes to help a mother replace her broken charger. No one complained, no one asked to clock out early. No one had to be told what the right thing was. They already knew.